I've just come back from being outside of the studio where there is no heater on, and I'm wearing jeans and my legs were freezing, which doesn't bode well for the fact that I'm going to Tasmania next week.
Mm.
And I looked up the weather report for the day or the days that we'll be at Cradle Mountain, and it is going to be 6 degrees for that national park. So it potentially could be even colder as we get higher up the mountain. So yeah, part of me is going, okay, we're going to do like a 5-hour hike. If we get completely soaked, is it just a matter of being potentially really uncomfortable for a few hours, or is it going to be life-threatening?
Yeah.
Is it going to be like a
Depends if you
couple of
get lost.
city slickers from Melbourne flying in and then getting the hire car, heading to the mountain, be like the Griswolds or something?
I mean, we watched that movie last night where they got off the track and then things got dire.
What movie was that?
The Dry 2.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah. Well, when I bought those jackets yesterday, the girl selling them to me was on a uni trip a couple of weeks ago, she said. Some other girl went with her and it was her first time hiking. They were at Mount Bogong, home of those massive moths.
mm.
And she said the reason she brought up was because the jackets I was buying, this girl wore, but she got hypothermia.
Good purchase.
I said, I'll be right. But she goes, no, the jacket actually held up well. She didn't get wet, even though they were in snow and even though other people had to be evacuated out. But yeah, this other girl got hypothermia because she wore shorts.
I mean,
There was always a kid on camp, wasn't there, where you're off on some sort of adventure camp or whatever it is. And like, it's one thing to forget like your toothpaste or whatever, but there'll be someone and they forgot their hat or their bathers or they didn't.
like everything. If it was up to our child who you're taking
Eh?
on this trip,
Oh, right, yeah.
I feel like there'd be a lot of items not packed, but the option was take him to Queensland with a pair of bathers and go to the theme parks.
That wasn't ever an option.
Well, you could
Might
have been.
in your mind. You never said anything to me about
did
that.
say-
You just said you could go somewhere warmer.
I did say go to Queensland.
Yeah.
And you went, nah,
No.
Tasmania, winter.
Well, technically it's
Cradle
not winter
Mountain,
though, is it?
high
It's-
elevation.
It's October.
It's spring, yeah.
Well, when we get
Options.
there, it'll be October.
6 degrees. Happy days. Well, it's an adventure, isn't it?
Well, if you look on their tourism website and they talk about winter season and summer season, like one of the seasons goes to September and the other one starts in November. And we're going in October. So I thought we're kind of in, like, what do they even call it down there? Like
I'd say
here,
they call it, we call it false spring here.
We call it spring in Melbourne, but in Tasmania, they don't have a word for it.
I'm going to say still winter.
Yeah. I'm sure the farmers have a word for it.
Like just wear thermals and pants, snow pants preferably by the sound of those conditions.
No, you still got to look good when you go out there.
Well, the shorts
You gotta
isn't
look
going to do
good
it, is
for
it?
the cameras when they're wheeling you into the back of the ambulance.
yeah.
The
What,
back of the air
because you've
ambulance.
decided to go down into the caves that you shouldn't have,
Yeah,
and the proper cave unionists found you.
that's true. Well, the last time we were in Tassie, or the last time you and I were in Tassie, we did get a phone call.
We did get a phone call saying that this
about-
actual child, our third born, was in hospital with a head injury, having been, fallen off the trampoline, allegedly pushed.
He's definitely kicked off by his brother, and we had a net around it, like responsible
Oh,
adults these days. Heaven forbid you own a trampoline, you don't have a net around it, but it had a
it had
tear
a gaping
in one
hole.
of the panels, and
Yes.
that's the one he accidentally kicked him through. I don't know why you're laughing about it.
I'm not laughing.
You're laughing
I'm
about
still
it.
horrified.
So welcome to the podcast. This podcast is Pain in the Arts, where the pursuit of meaningful art meets the unpredictable demands of real life. And I am Lyndon.
And I am Brea.
You are Briellen indeed.
Mm-hmm. In my office /study, and also under the stairs where we keep boxes of mementos as well as the Christmas decorations and possibly even Harry Potter shoved in the back there. There is a collection of my notebooks. Now, I've got lots and lots of notebooks that I write things in all the time and have done for years. Some of them are more journalistic, some of them are just kind of day-to-day notes, and I tend to just keep them. And I don't know really why, but every so often I'll come across one and flick back through it, and there's lots and lots of to-do lists and reminders to myself. And the thing is, what if one day I collect them all together and just have a bit of a flip through of the things that I've been occupying my life with and realize that most of it's just day-to-day busyness. I've literally achieved nothing, but I've kept myself extremely busy in the process.
Where are these notes?
All over the joint.
But where were you saying they're under the stairs?
Yeah, there's some notebooks under the stairs in our boxes and in various places that I don't know, put things away.
But do you keep a journal?
I do, but it tends to be, I do it at different periods of my life. So I don't do it like literally every day. I wish I did almost, but yeah, I do journaling, which tends to be different. Sometimes my notebooks collide and I'll be journaling or sort of having like stream of consciousness type writing. Sometimes I'll be practicing writing, so practicing creative writing, and sometimes I'll just be writing stuff down so that it's out of my head, and then that tends to be to-do lists and stuff like that. And sometimes I'm very organized and keep different notebooks for each different thing. Sometimes I even write neatly, but sometimes it's just a collision of all of the things in the one notebook. So, I mean, even that's possibly a little autobiographical in terms of what it tells about my life at certain points and how organized I feel, or just how compelled I am to just try to jot things down.
There is this thing about to-do lists that when you have like 15 things written down and it's just completely overwhelming because you're like, I've got all these things to achieve. But then if you actually pull your finger out and dedicate some time to it and then do them, some of them take like 30 seconds.
And today we're talking about, I guess, the difference. Like being busy isn't necessarily being productive. So I guess we can talk about what's the difference between the two and who decides that.
Because you can be busy and be productive, but you can get caught up in busyness, which I think is generally considered not productive. I think in the work that we do, beyond all the distractions of busyness, you need to be able to sit down and go, right, I'm going to do some focused work, and that idea of deep work. And in order to do deep work, it's not always about going, well, if I just concentrate and be the best version of myself for the next 2 or 3 hours, then I'll do deep work. Like with the creative process, you need at least 3, 4, 5 hours, and often the most rewarding or usable stuff happens in the last hour of that time. So,
were you very conscious of that your time's running out?
Yeah, but also, I mean, conscious, I guess, too, of like the first couple of hours. If someone was watching you, it wouldn't look like you're doing any work.
In the context of our podcast of Painting the Arts, we're talking about actually producing the art that we kind of dream of or that is close to our hearts. So it's, yeah, ironically, like the busyness that I experience day to day with all these to-do lists and all that kind of thing, it's definitely getting things done, lots of things getting done. There's lots going on, lots of balls in the air that need to be juggled and so on, and things completed. But what productivity looks like, if I'm being very productive in terms of actually writing something that is close to my heart, that is a more of a passion project, that might look like me talking to myself while I walk around the house, or sort of folding some clothes while I'm probably still talking to myself. But like,
I've seen you do that.
Yeah, but
muttering away, look like a mad person.
Yeah, good. Glad to know that
I just
it's
think
on the
it's
outside.
happening
Well,
Bit
yeah,
of
because
scent.
there's
Is it fun?
no. It's actually probably
I have to
conversations
gather the kids
between
around and go,
characters.
listen, Mum's got to get her affairs in order. Have a look at her.
Oh, well, sad to know that it does actually look not very good, but maybe
worse
just
if you're
let
doing it
me
out on the street.
be when I'm doing that, because yeah, that is probably when I'm actually getting some progress done in my head of what's going to happen next in a plot line, or how these two characters are interacting and so on. And so it might be a couple of hours of looking like nothing's happening, and then some writing takes place. Some notes will be created. There'll be some sticky notes sitting around. There'll be some typing going on. And yeah, so some of that deeper work and some of that productivity actually just looks like nothingness. And if somebody was to look from the outside, which clearly you've been spying and you have.
Well, I don't have to spy if you're walking around the house doing normal everyday things, but your lips are moving and no sound's coming out. It's not spying, it's observing.
Well, there you go. Well, that's what it looks like.
It's observing with my eyes
101.
and ringing 000 with my hands.
I guess trying to figure out when to be productive, when the busyness needs to happen, who gets to determine the mix of those things. I feel like that is such an ongoing, well, it's almost been a theme through, well, our lives and our married life together, of when do we fit this stuff in? How do we get anything done? And when we, like, we'll often moan to each other, I'm never going to get anything done. And it's this thing of, and when yeah, it's totally true. I haven't gotten anything done. And when we say anything, I mean, lots of things have been done. But when we say that anything, what we're really meaning is that productive work or that deep work of production of art that we really want to do.
Well, the problem is that we do everything else before it. And it's easy to say that we shouldn't or I shouldn't. But what happens is there are some things that you absolutely have to do and you can't ignore. And obvious things would be if you've got to take a child to an orthodontist appointment or pick someone up. It's like you can't not do those things. But then it just seeps into everything, where everyone else and everything else comes first, whether they're in this family or out of the family, whether it's that whole idea of is the thing important or is it urgent? And so there's a massive fat grey line between what's important and what's urgent, because sometimes it can be both. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, I just think we can easily get into bad habits. And it seems like what I've done this year is I've had the perfect plan on how I think my day should look. And it's been based around being healthy, being mentally healthier as well. But it's already nearly October, and there's been a bunch of different things that have happened this year that have been out of our control and out of my control. But on the days where ideally I could have done those things and lived out my perfect day, it sort of hasn't happened. And when I think back to when I was being more productive in the studio and happier with what I was putting into it and what I was getting out, it was really based around going, right, the first thing I'm doing today is purely just musical things that involve instruments, microphones, recording, and I'm going to get some solid time under my belt with that. And then my day I worry about other things afterwards. And so maybe that's something I need to go back to.
So putting that in first and just making sure that that's done. Yeah.
Yeah. Just go, that's the first thing I do.
Yeah. Interestingly, I was thinking back to a period when I was happier with my creative work as well. And for whatever reason, I think our youngest was sleeping through the night during that stage, but I was able to get up early every morning before all the kids woke up, and I would do 45 minutes just of writing. And it was not particularly working on something. It was honing my skills and just writing. It might be a character study. It might be a description of something. It might be documenting the morning waking up around me. And I just felt so much better about just having spent time writing. And it was the best time of day because the sun was starting to come up, and then for the rest of the day I would know, just have that almost like you've had a drink of water and you've had enough, and it just feels like you've done that thing for the day, the most important thing. So that was interesting that we've had a similar experience in that.
Well, I think what's kind of curious or frustrating over the years is you look back on those times and go, how come it didn't last? Like, why didn't it, like, what was it?
Why can't I do it now kind of thing? Yeah. Maybe there's just too many important things to try to fit into a day. I don't know. Like, I've been doing some PT sessions with my trainer, Georgina, and in her mind, it's simple. Like, just come to the gym first thing every day. Like, just put that in first in your day. Just get here.
But didn't you identify that
all you have to do is get here?
Would be like writing.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like, which is the first thing? And by the time you get to the second thing and then the third thing, it's like lunchtime has passed and then you realize you do have this massive to-do list. It's this stuff has got to be done. I've got work to do and kids to pick up and all the rest of it. It's very hard to put in enough of the good things. So maybe, is it a floating schedule that's better? Is it a weekly thing?
I often think, and I've said it to you before, how do the people that are working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, say in an office job, when do they pay their bills or make the appointments for the dentist or organise all their kids' activities and that? Like, why are we doing it during the day? Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of the businesses and things that we would contact, they close at 5. So you can't, I mean, paying the bills and that you can do online anytime. But all the other organisation, or where you need to speak to a real person, or the email has to be sent at a particular time. I guess you can send emails from work 9 to 5, but like it's like they don't have a choice. I feel like I'm going to start talking about things I have no business talking about.
Are you in the mysterious realm of
what do real people do?
Yeah, what do real humans do when they work?
My point is, if they're working, do people work for the man still? But if they're working for the boss, right, or for a company, they've got things that they need to do in that time. And so it's not an option for them to just do this or just do that. Unless they steal a bit of time here and there. Well, so-and-so's going out to have a smoke. I don't smoke. So that means I can spend 10 minutes doing this or that. But it's like, if we're working for ourselves and we were more in a habit of treating it like a 9 to 5 job, then maybe we would put those boundaries on ourselves and go, right, well, we're only doing these things on our lunch break, or we're doing them, I don't know, at 5 o'clock or 4:30. I think we have tried that before.
Well,
and it didn't, and it worked and didn't last.
Yeah. I think our circumstances are a little bit different. Well, I think what you're talking about, like, I think you'd find that many, many women end up being in my position of juggling a lot of the things as well as trying to work. And I'm sure there's podcasts we could listen to about how, often women after they've had kids, they don't go full time back into the workforce. So they have to do it, like, because they end up with those organisational and household domestic responsibilities of doing all of the many, many things that come with keeping a family afloat. And it does take time. It does. It just, like, I know one of the things that I do in order to try to batch the work that I have to do in terms of the family work, the household, and so on, I do what I call Admin Monday, and I try to work systematically, but even then it's hard. And I definitely am trying to put on like that admin hat so that stuff gets done, and I know that the rest of the week is organised. And the reason that I do that mostly is because what I what is a really stressful feeling for me is if I go, oh, I can actually, maybe I could sit down and do some creative work on that thing that I was wanting to get around to, and then have this, I don't know, it's like a freight train, just carriage after carriage of thought of haven't organized this, haven't done that, didn't get back to this person, didn't do that thing. What about this? What about that? And we do have a complex needs child that we've got a lot to organize for, and there's a lot of proactive work I have to do. So for me, I find that in order to not be, just a absolute stressed person all of the time, I try to jump on the front foot with it. That's why I put it on Monday. I used to try to do it Fridays, but now it's Monday, and I try to get all those appointments booked and all of the therapies organised, all of our budgeting done, shopping ordered, emails answered. Yeah, all of the things orderly and organised for the whole family. And then that means that, well, theoretically, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm working. And Friday, I would love to be leaving free for creative work. And there's the difficulty, I suppose, because you know what I usually do on Fridays? Take kids to the orthodontist, do all the different appointments. I occasionally go see Georgina there at the gym. Actually get all of those other things done, so other extra stuff that always ends up being part of the week. So that tends to take up that time. But I am hoping to reclaim those Fridays for writing. I mean, it's actually, I think it's amazing we're in front of these microphones because we've been talking about doing a podcast for a while, and that it's kind of a side hustle, isn't it? A side project to our other creative projects that we have on the burner somewhere. So yeah, at least we're here doing this one thing.
Well, not the only, but the challenge, I don't want to say problem, so say challenge of what you've described in your week is what I was describing before about in terms of a day, and where if I do all these other things and forsake the actual music, as in like I leave that for whatever time I have left, even though that's not my intention. If I go, I'm just going to get all these other things done, and then I'll be in the right frame of mind where I can take a deep breath and knuckle down and do some deep work. If it doesn't happen, then I don't feel content or satisfied, and the weight of that carries over into the next day. So what you've sort of described is the same thing, but spread out over a week. So there is a really good argument for you literally reversing that and going, Monday is my day. So maybe we are at that point of going, we have to put this other stuff first. It doesn't mean the other things aren't getting done. It just means they're getting done at a different time of day or a different time of week. I don't know. It's like we've created our own little culture. Like you've created your little culture. I've created my little culture. There's this culture like here in our home, and it's separate too, but informed and prodded and pressured by an external culture. And at the end of the day, it's a fight against all of that. And maybe doing this podcast is a way of putting the spotlight back on it and reclaiming it in a way.
Well, it's definitely, something that we've talked about doing, and as a way of examining what creativity means to us and what part it plays in our lives, and how we can end up doing those fulfilling projects that we have been wanting to do for a while. And which have definitely been a little derailed. Our life has been extraordinarily unpredictable and very demanding over the last few years. We've had illnesses and so on in the family that we've had to attend to. So it's been completely out of our hands what those priorities are at the time. But maybe we're feeling like we're at a point we can at least be examining this and going, aside from being good parents and running a family that takes care of each of the members and all that, the next thing that's very, very important to us in our lives is to give precedent to our creativity in our different areas, and to, I guess, make sure we do create those projects that we've been wanting to. So this is our way of examining that, and maybe finding our way into it being something that we are kind of achieving week by week or day by day, or
Well,
we've
achieving just
some-
added another thing to it, though, haven't we, by doing this?
by doing the podcast.
And so whether by unconscious design or not, we have no choice but to really heavily reassess where we spend it's not where we spend our creative time, it's when, I think. It's when.
It's when. And the amount of time, because like we were saying, a lot of the productive time, you knee deep into it 4 or 5 hours, and then that's when you're mining the gold. And until you have to go through that process in order to get to that point, it can't be rushed, it can't be changed in any way. But if you stop too soon, you'd never quite get there. So trying to create that time. But I think the other part of doing the podcast is we're not the only ones. We know that there's many people out there, that artists in whatever field or material they want to use. There's people everywhere trying to find creative space in their lives, trying to make that space, and perhaps us sharing our blundering way into trying to have more of that time spent in our lives. Maybe that's going to be helpful to somebody else along their journey as well. And we hope so. We hope that listeners will get in touch with us and we can kind of do it together, because it can be a lonely pursuit as well, which I'm sure we'll cover in other podcasts, but to feel that you're not alone in the journey is a good thing. So we do hope that us, I guess, opening a little window into our lives, being creative among the chaos, certainly will help you not feel as alone in doing it yourself.
When we talk about creativity, what have you been doing this week creatively?
All right. Well, what have I been doing? I think my work, I'm a copywriter, and I think my work is sort of related to the creative writing that I really want to be doing. And I do get
done.
Yeah, and I have done. And I do get a certain amount of satisfaction out of it, because I guess there's parameters in it, I suppose. I've got to write for a certain business. It has to be, for instance, a website or a blog or whatever, that has to be a certain amount of pages, certain amount of words within the page. I've got certain information that I've got to get across. But it's within all the parameters. It's actually, I guess it's one of those things where sometimes the boundaries make you be creative within those boundaries. So finding the right voice for each business and being able to communicate exactly what the readers need to hear is quite important. Obviously, it's important to the business and to the work. So it's a creative way of doing the work that I do. So I guess it's satisfying that in that regard. I'm working on I'm editing a book as well at the moment. So that's something else that I'm sort of bringing a creative eye to. So it's related, but not exactly in the ballpark of that creative work that I'm wanting to do and wanting to elevate in my life. And I think too, just, I don't know, being a mum, running a household, that sort of thing, there's lots of little ways to bring creativity and so on to make family life a beautiful thing and a nicer thing. It might be cooking or gardening or whatever it is, the way that you do the house decor or whatever it is that makes for an interesting and creative and kind of enjoyable life. So I certainly like to think that I bring my creative side to that. Who knows? You guys can be the answer to that. I've
seen that. You've always done lots of creative things with the kids, and whether it's gardening or anything like that. But
I'll tell you what else I did this week. I've been sanding back a
Yeah,
little dresser, and my goodness, my shoulders are killing me. I can't believe it. I used to do
You're
that
not
stuff
even finished.
all
I
the
saw there's
time.
a couple of panels still.
I
have to
know.
go.
I have, yeah. And that's just the first sand. So clearly, I'm not spending nearly enough time with Georgina at the gym lifting those weights.
It's one of those weeks that it's already Wednesday. Is it? It's Wednesday today?
It
Or is
is.
it Thursday?
It is Wednesday today.
Yes, but it feels like the week only just got started. I'm kind of in this midpoint where the theme for this podcast, believe it or not, hasn't been written. So I've got to do that. So that I've got a few ideas on my phone that I've played into my phone that I just need to realize. So that's been sort of scheduled in for this week. So it's not what I'm working on, but it's what I'm about to work on. I need to do a remix of a song for a guy, Ricky, who recorded earlier this year with me. And I just saw that he's doing a sold out house concert in Melbourne later this coming month, which is great. So yeah, he needs a naughty word taken out of it. So it's not a remix. It's more like a
little edit there.
An edit, a censoring for radio. Yeah, and there was a guy who I've been in touch with, and he was looking to record his first single as a signed artist to a label, but he hasn't heard back from them yet. So he's yeah. So it's a bit of
a tough wait.
Yeah, I know. You get really excited about when you've got a label that's really interested in you. It's a massive bolstering to your confidence, among other things. And so it's equally as deflating if doesn't seem to be panning out. It can really be a bit of a kick in the guts, and that's sort of the roller coaster of being an independent artist, I think. So you're navigating all this stuff. Yeah. So he was pretty excited and I was excited for him. But yeah, it's just sort of found out this week that, who knows, it might not even be going ahead. So yeah, so it's sort of, that's kind of where things are at in the studio this week. But I've got plenty of things to get on with. But yeah, the other thing when I think about it that's distracted me is all this planning for this impromptu trip to Tasmania. So I've actually spent, the best part of Monday and Tuesday really this week booking the flights, booking accommodation, and just getting ready for it. Because as much as I would like to just go, it's all booked and we'll just get on the plane on the day, there's actually, just a lot that needs to be considered. So it's all come up very quickly, and
has to be done.
It has to be done, which is probably an example of everything
you got a deadline
talking about. Yeah, I've got a deadline that it was self-imposed. As soon as I booked the flights, couldn't go over there and have nowhere to stay. So
that's the busyness of life there. The theme of so many things, like something's coming up, it has to be organized.
Well, thanks for listening to our very first podcast of Pain in the Arts. You can support the show on Patreon for free or become a paid subscriber if you wish, and that will cost you less than a cup of coffee a month. So just go to patreon.com/painintheartslife. Now, our website is paininthearts.life. So www.paininthearts.life. And there's some blogs up there, and there'll be free resources covering all of the themes that are being discussed in this podcast. And remember to follow the show, subscribe to Pain in the Arts in your favorite podcast service so that you never miss a show and you'll be notified of new episodes. And that is it. We will see you next time.
See you next week.